Smadar, welcome back to Raw.
Thank you.
How are you?
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Happy to be here.
You just came from the north, so I really appreciate you being here. I particularly want to focus today on your new book, which I took the liberty to translate to "You Came Back So Suddenly," which is titled in Hebrew "Chazarta Pitom," which looks at what families and couples are going through after long periods of reserve duty. And not only the coming home, but also the private, the complicated, and the sometimes very painful return to ordinary life. So since October 7th, to put things in context, hundreds of thousands of Israelis have been called up for reserve duty. Many families have gone through this not once, but again and again. Absence, return, readjustment, and then inevitably, sadly so, another call-up. But I don't want to begin with the army as an institution. I want to begin with what happens when the war comes home, into the kitchen, the bedroom, the children's routines, and the silences between two people who love each other but can't quite find each other. And you mentioned children who said things like, "It took us a long time to get used to Dad not being around, but eventually we managed. And now when he comes back, the order is disrupted again. And just as we get used to him being here, he is drafted again. It's exhausting." And you've said that behind closed doors in your clinic, there are even harsher sentences sometimes. Women, for example, who are saying, "I can't wait for him to go back to Gaza." And then there's this quote from a reservist, which I found heartbreaking. Again, I took the liberty to translate this from Hebrew. He said, "I felt my hands were rough, and I was afraid I would scratch her when I touched her. For a month and a half, I was operating heavy, dusty equipment. Everything had to be strong, forceful, with a slam. Suddenly, I felt like I had forgotten how to be gentle. It was the first time in my life that I couldn't function. I could not believe it was happening to me. And while I was in shock at myself, I was also thinking about how long she had waited for this and how badly I wanted to make her happy. I felt like a rookie, like nothing. I wanted to disappear." So, Smadar, I want to begin there.
Oh, I want to cry. It is so sad.
Yeah. So it really is so sad.
Yes.
And so I want to make space for that and kind of understanding you've been working with couples for a very long time. And what do you feel has changed in the past few years since the war? And I assume changed so much that you wrote a whole book about it.
First of all, everything has changed. I think for all of us Israelis, our perspective about life, about death, about war, about the sense of safety that we feel here. And this book is focused on the reserve forces and the families of the people that are serving. And I think it's been evolving, it's changing all the time. When we wrote this book, we started a year and a half ago, we had the feeling that, soon it will be over. Like the subtitle of the book is that, how do you heal relationship after hundreds days of reserve serving? And we really believe that we're at the end of the situation. And then it will be over. The war will be over, and families will have the time and the resources to recover. And for many Israelis, it feels like war is over. We're like back to our strange normal. But people are still serving hundreds of days a year, like 5 months per year for almost 3 years now.
Wow.
And it doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon. So we wrote the book thinking, whoa, there's a major event happening. Soon it will be over, and we can collect the pieces and heal. And now we're saying maybe it's not about recovery, it's about getting used to a whole new routine.
A whole new reality.
A whole new reality that is ongoing. And I must say, I was almost crying here because I am trying to be a professional about it. But on the other hand, I have to be honest and say, even as professionals, we've never been in this situation. I know that a couple or family can cope when there's something happening, some major change, or maybe an illness or something that you have to deal with, and we can help couples recover from that. But when the earth is shaking over and over again, when the old structure of the family is being separated, and then we have to get used to be back together, and there's something so unstable for so long, I get to the point where I'm speechless every time. So we find a ways to help. There's a lot of things that we can teach and we can give. But bottom line, I must say, this situation is unhealthy, unbearable, not supposed to be. And I think that the state owns these people that are willing to give everything. The state should be able to put limit to itself, because those people were trained never to set limit to the state, to always say, yes, we go. And we must not abuse that goodwill of these people.
Yeah. For people who have just kind of heard of this from the outside, I mean, we know there are these people who are uprooted from their work and from their families and go on reserve duty. What is it about it, or what are the many things about that makes it so hard for a couple, for a family to function? Is it the fact that it happens without notice, that you often don't know in advance when you're going to be called up and for how long? Is it the intensity, the violence of what is happening when generally the man is away? Is it the woman staying alone and suddenly having to manage the reality on her own? Is it finding each other again? What are the kind of aspects that make this so complicated? And why is it so much more complicated, like you said, than a one-off event, let's say an illness, where we kind of overcome together, find a new way to live in a new reality and find ways to back each other up? What is it about this reality that leads to so many ruptures in couples and in families?
All of the above and more. It's like everything you mentioned. And I think there's so many layers to this. And I tried once just to count all the fields and layers that it affects, and it's like countless. I'll give two examples. Many times people are like thinking that it's harder when you have kids, and some families that have lots of kids and very young kids, it's even harder for the women. And I spoke to a woman that they've just married just before the war started. They are religious, so they just moved in together right before the war started. And when he was called on the October 7th, he had to go back to his parents' house to bring the uniform, because he didn't even bring his uniform into his new home with his new wife. And then they didn't get a chance to even establish their house together, and the routine, the everyday life as a couple. And he's been away for months, and then came back home to a home that is not even used to, that doesn't feel at home yet, because he just moved in. And she says, everyone tells me, well, at least you don't have kids. But I stay home alone. When there are alarms, I sit alone in the safe room. At least other women have kids to take care of. They're not all alone. They can hug their kids. The story shows there's so many levels of effect it has. Another thing that I think is unique is that many of us, we don't remember this, because Israelis, we tend to just move forward and, okay, next.
Amnesia. Yeah, the necessary amnesia in order to live here.
Yes. But on the first weeks, everyone in Israel were terrified that we're going to have terrorists coming into our houses. People were buying the things to lock the safe room. And I remember just walking in my neighborhood and I saw someone going downstairs wearing a green hat. And I thought, all right, we have Nukhba. So you have your husband going to the war, leaves you and the kids alone when you're not feeling safe. It's not like the danger is out there and you go and protect me out there at the border. The danger is right here. So we were terrified. And how come you take your weapon and you go? I need you and your weapon here. Now, this conflict between protecting my state and protecting my family, which is supposed to be the same, but it came into a real conflict that we see in many families now, where you go and you protect our country. That's amazing, but you miss the little kid's birthday and the one finishing the first grade and the birth of your son. It's like that's also protecting our family. Such a deep conflict that people carry within themselves. Should they go? Should they stay? Should they let him go? Should they beg him to stay? And between each other. So I think it's an unfair conflict. You're not supposed to be torn apart between protecting your nation and your family.
And as you're saying that, I'm realizing that probably as the wars, plural, drag on, and there are so many of them on so many fronts, there is a point at which someone might think, do I believe in this? And that makes it even harder. I think at some point, maybe after October 7th, it was so obvious. And as it drags on and people go again and again and again, and also the broader geopolitical reality shows us that, Israel is not necessarily winning. In a way, it makes it, I assume, harder to believe in this departure of leaving the kids yet again, of tearing the family apart yet again, in order to fight for something that many people have a hard time really believing in anymore. Is that something that you encounter as well?
Absolutely. And in many senses, people who do politically believe in this war and agree with maybe with the government, maybe it's easier on them. And you also, and that's crucial, I think. And then on top of that, as it continues, we have people being injured physically and also emotionally and mentally. And I think that what came to my head when you spoke about that is a moral injury. When you find yourself that you have to participate in something that you would have never done in your civil life, and then you come back and you say, okay, that was the war, but I have to live with what I had to do or what I saw or what I took part in. And that's an injury that receives no room in the Israeli discourse. It's like something that we're not willing even to give room for, talk about. So I think that people are being injured twice. First, the moral injury, and then have to stay alone with that injury without having acceptance and support from the Israeli society. I think that's going to be very hard. And another thing is that the absence is also many times accompanied by the fear of maybe something will happen to him. So my husband is not in the reserve forces, but his son has been combat for the entire war. And I didn't sleep for months. It's like every car that was slowing down on our street in the night, I was terrified. Now that's a very heavy mental load to carry with you for so long. I can't even measure the impact, the long run impact of being in such amount of stress for so long.
So what are some of the things that you're noticing in both the reservists and the families who stay back home? Is it like increase in anxiety, depression, anger,
Drug
are there
abuse, alcohol abuse.
drug and alcohol
Um,
abuse?
yeah. Um, First of all, every couple has their difficulties.
Hmm.
So many times the problems that we had before are being multiple now.
Amplified.
Yes, amplified now. And many times couple come to therapy rarely ever say it's the reserve or it's the war. They come and they speak about the same problems people always came with to the clinic, about their libido, their communication, stuff like that. So I understand that people take it on themselves. It's very hard to see that it happens for a reason. It's not just us. And, you know, the way I was brought up, the way what you brought with you to the relationship, people take it really like it's us, it's personal, it's our private thing. And many times just to show them, whoa, wait a second, you've been in an abnormal situation for months now, especially those serving the reserve forces. It's not just your usual problems. It's your resources to deal with them are like completely like it's empty. And there's so much more on your shoulders right now. But many times people don't make the connection between what they feel in the relationship. They keep blaming themselves, each other's, the usual, and they can't see the context that brought them to the breaking point.
It's interesting because you've mentioned twice now that there are these kind of unspoken things almost in this society. You mentioned moral injury, which is a lot of soldiers coming back have deep moral, if not injuries, then at least confusion about what they did and why and whether it is good or whether it is bad, because we're being told both. I mean, society, the world at large is telling us both, in the most extreme kind of amplified voices. And that's something that's really not spoken about. And on the other hand, you're saying that there are these couples that come to you who have gone in many instances through years of dealing with reserve duties, perhaps friends of the reservist dying, being wounded, coming, going, missing children's milestones. And you're sharing that these couples are coming to you and almost not really realizing the impact that this immense events have had on them, and maybe internalizing it as their fault, his fault, my upbringing.
Yeah, we like sometimes we have this kind of context blindness. And also we take a lot on ourselves. And I think that it's something that you can say about the type of people who are those reserve combats. And these are people that are being brought up to take on themselves, to take full responsibility, to always think, okay, what do I do now? Never complain. You don't wait for someone else to do the job. Be the one that says, I'm first after me. So also in their private lives, we see that the ability to say something is unfair, something is too much, it's too heavy on me. Reality affects us. It's not always the first thing that comes to mind for these people.
So you have written this book which includes a kind of pathway to trying to repair relationships. Now, you did say you wrote it when you thought very optimistically that we were at the end of the war road, at least for a little while, and then it started again. But even so, the book is full of really beautiful wisdom and advice. Can you kind of condense that for us? What is it that you want couples to know?
All right. First of all, I have to say that I didn't write this book alone. I wrote it with Shai Wim, which is a therapist, and he's also an army shrink. He's like
An army therapist,
army
yes, army
therapist.
psychologist, yes.
Yes, and also the editor, Laura Levian. She's the one that initiated the book. It was her idea. Her husband is, I just met her. He's, for the, I don't know, fifth or sixth time, is in a reserve round. And she had a passion. She said, we need this book. And so we tried also writing it quite fast because it felt like it's urgent. And I think like the main thing I want to say is I always believe that we get challenges that we can cope with, and people are really growing through this situation we've been forced into. And one day the war will be over, and these people can be back in a normal routine, and they're going to be so much more resilient, smart, wise. They are gaining so many abilities that wouldn't have been gained any other way. And one way to take it is say, we're growing here. We are growing. It's very intense, but it's going to pay off. It's one way to look at it. And we develop such resilience, and our kids are looking at us, and they also learn that we're able to cope with very complicated things. That's one thing. Another thing is, which is quite overwhelming, the amount of people that for the first time turn to therapy or retreats for couples or any kind of relationship education that never would ever go and take and touched it before is amazing. Because now it's like legit because of the war and the reserve, and the army also encouraged them, and the state give them budget to go and spend on couple therapy. Not enough, but still. So the system really encouraged them to do that, and people that would have never gone to couple therapy before now do that, and they get a chance to have the methods and the knowledge, and something amazing is happening in the education of people about relationship.
What you said makes me think in kind of other terms of that resilience, of that strength which comes after these challenges. Reminds me of the words post-traumatic growth, and it's something that you hear all the time in Israeli society now, which is so powerful. What makes the difference in a person who has been through all of that, or in a couple, between someone whose children will look at them and say, you know, like you said, it was so touching. And when you mentioned it, that idea of the children looking at their father, presumably, and seeing someone who has been through so many challenges, can see that his own family has been through so many challenges and has grown, is still there, and is strong. What makes the difference between someone like that and someone who disintegrates under post-traumatic stress disorder? Because both are possible. It is possible to kind of go through these unbelievable challenges that, like you said, no individual should have to go through, and no state should ask their citizens to go through so much. And someone who will then kind of fall apart.
Well, so many factors. First of all, I say that's post-traumatic growth. It's like, give us less post-trauma, and thanks for the growth. It's okay.
We've had enough trauma. Now we can grow in peace.
I don't have to grow that much.
Yes.
It's okay. So I think there are many factors. I just want to put one here that I think that is important. You know, I've been asked to give a Zoom lecture for one organization of reserve families. And when I started the Zoom, and I asked a few questions just to know where people are from and like how many days they've been serving. And I said, from 1 to 10, where are you on the scale of halas?
Enough. Done.
Like, really,
Yes.
like, enough is enough, okay? Like, 1 is, we're good, we're on, it's a, yeah, bring it on. And 10 is enough. And then the person who invited me,
Organizer.
yeah, he actually broke into my speaking and said, we don't say halas here. Halas is not an option. And it took me a minute. I'm very, I have a lot of experience with Zooms and lectures, so, but it took me a minute to realize that even just to say it, it's not like I'm saying who's like not going next time, like who feels like they had enough. And I want to say that we know, if I take example from a different field, when they talk about post-labor depression, we know that women that tend...
You mean like depression after postnatal depression?
Yes. That women who tend to fall into this depression, there are women that don't feel like it's not legit
Permission.
to feel
They don't have the
everything.
permission.
To feel that you love the child, you don't love the child, you're happy you're a mother, you hate that you became a mother, it's too much. And all the ups and downs, we all know adjusting into motherhood is a major thing, and you have all scale of feelings. And when women don't have, either it's they feel it's okay within all this surrounding says you shouldn't feel this way, you're supposed to love him, then it's really dangerous. If you want to support these women, we should say it's okay. Whatever you feel is okay. You're good. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you a bad mother. It's natural. It's okay. You're good. Even if you have bad feelings, you're good. And I think that in some groups, for example, this organization, you have no permission to say, even to yourself,
this is too much.
This is too much. And I think this is dangerous. And I said it. And I said, I respect it. And I'm not saying you should say we don't go. And I deeply respect the fact that no matter what, you go. Thank you for that. Because you're protecting us. But it's a different thing to give room to feelings. It's okay that you don't give room to feelings on the battlefield. I know very little about how to manage a battlefield. It's not my field, luckily. But at least when you go home, when you talk to yourself, when you talk to your partner, you want to have the permission to feel everything. And I think that goes for all Israelis for the past 3 years, because we go through all kinds of feelings. But many times I think that's what makes the difference between someone who can cope and someone who breaks. Because if I'm not allowed to feel what I feel, then now I have another war within me. And we don't have power or resources for another war, for an inner war.
Beautiful. Thank you. I want to delve a little bit into the kind of different tools that you work with when couples come to you and they say, we're falling apart, we're fighting in front of the kids, or we're not talking to each other, or we're being angry or violent, or I can't stand when he touches me, or she doesn't want me to touch her, or vice versa. Where do you start? And what is your goal? Is your goal to give them tools with which they can work when they go back home? Or is it a kind of general worldview?
I'm going to say, I think, unpopular opinion. I like tools. I think tools are overrated and no one ever practiced them at home. People always say, give some practical tools.
It's true. I never do the exercises that my osteopath tells me to do. None of them. ever. And then I go back
So,
complaining.
but people say, I want something practical. But you never practice the practicals. But I think a change occurs when people are able to see things from a perspective they didn't see before. When we're being locked within our thinking patterns and the way we define reality to ourselves over and over again. And what I try to do with couples, usually I just ask tons of questions. And I just love it when someone like takes a moment and their eyes are like looking up, like they're searching for an answer somewhere, and I ask them something about themselves and say, wow, I never thought about this before. That's all right. And then when you see things from a different perspective, you cannot unseen it. It's not reversible. And then you have more options. Once you saw, you can tell yourself a different story, you have more options. And unlike tools that we never practice, when we have more options, sometimes we'll take a new option and then something different can happen in our relationships.
What about the children? Because you mentioned obviously that a lot of the women in many cases who stay behind don't yet have children, but many do. And I assume that that relationship is strained as well, and they very much feel the difficulties that the parents are going through. Is that something that you work with as well? And what should parents going through those deep divides and difficulties, how should they communicate that with their children?
So I get that metaphor of like a football team that it seemed like they're all doing the same job, but actually they are apparently they have like different roles and you know what's your role in the team. Now imagine all of a sudden you come to play ball and then the leader is gone. So we're gonna have to cover up. You know, everyone will do something a little bit different, and then we manage to still become a team. And if it happens again and again, so we're gonna have like a different roles, and we get used to it, and we get comfortable with it. And then all of a sudden, he comes back. Well, someone is already taking your position. Now, when you come back, we have to adjust again. Now, adjusting is something that for us human takes energy. And I saw that in families, it's also the same way. What you read at the beginning, that a woman said, I can't wait for him to go back to Gaza. It's that exact point. You've been gone for weeks now. We've learned to manage differently. I can scare away cockroaches. I can take the car to the garage. The older son is taking care of that. The younger one knows, and I'm on top of everything. And we have some kind of routine and we get used to it and we kind of okay with it. We miss that a lot. But we have different roles in the family, the one that makes everyone laugh, the one that gets on everyone's nerves, the one that's always late. We have our positions in families. And now you're back. And we have so many times we've heard men saying, I'm back home. I open the door, I stand there, and I don't know what to do with myself. I remember one of them said, and I start washing the dishes. Like, I don't know. I haven't been here for, who am I? What is, and the kids say, no, mommy says differently. And, or they get so used to listen to mama. I'm like an uncle coming to visit. Like, where is my authority? And so the thing about adjusting and then readjusting and then readjusting is, I think that's where the difficulty for everyone, but for the kids, that kids, they love routines and like predictable. So for them, this can be like, it can drive them mad. Some kids are more sensitive to that than the other, but it's hard on them. So this is one thing. And what we suggest is that we find like little bridges that we can keep our special connection with Father in a creative way, even when he's away and cannot talk too much on the phone. For instance, little kids, they don't like being asked, "How are you? I was in kindergarten. What did you do today?" They're just going to say, "Okay, fine, sababa." It's boring for them, and they're gonna sooner or later they're gonna start avoiding this conversation. I don't want to talk to daddy. But if, let's say, like if one of the kids, his job is to take the dog out every day, and he sends his father a picture from every walk to show him, daddy is still like he used to, keeping an eye that you're doing your duty on taking the dog out for a walk, and you send him a photo every day, and father sends thumb up. It's a thing, but sometimes it's better than how was your day, or draw me a picture and send it to me, or record something to me, or send me emojis of what you ate today. You can find creative ways to stay relevant, to stay in touch, to know what's going on. It's not always easy when you're far away and you're occupied with other stuff. But, the thing is, not only with the kids, also with our partners. The situation raises up the question, what is our relationship? Is it living together? Is it sharing bank account? Is it sharing the sandwiches and driving the kids to school? Is it sleeping together? Is it having sex? If we take everything off, and those families had to do that, we don't meet, you're not here for long periods of time. There was not even a phone connection. We can even text each other. What remains? What's our relationship if we cannot even communicate and we're not together? And I think that's such a profound question. And many couples have also, among all the difficulties, found a very deep answer to this question, which is about love. It's about the essence of human connection that is not conditioned by
circumstances.
Yes, that's a very strong and profound enlightenment. And those families have like been ripped off all the structure that this is holding us together. And sometimes it's the opportunity to see that like the essence of the choice to be connected.
So what does success look like for you? Can you give us an example of maybe a family who you feel has kind of gone through this challenge and come out stronger? What does that look like?
For me, success is staying alive, staying sane, and being able to forgive ourselves for being so not in our best for the last 3 years. So many mothers said, I'm not the mother. I don't have the chance to be the mother I want to be. Much more short-tempered, and the kids get on my nerves, and I'm tired. And I want to say my other kid is 18, and I also didn't get a chance to be the mother I wanted to be. It's like life. And being able to take the thing that is so broken and say, that's the whole, that's the complete thing, and love ourselves. I think this is success.
I think that's the essence also, and maybe a thread that goes through this conversation is really understanding perhaps that this is so much bigger than us. We talked about it with kind of couples internalizing this and feeling like it's them, it's their fault, they're not good enough parents, they should be doing the moral thing in the army, we're responsible for the leader's decisions, and ultimately maybe really understanding that this is so much bigger than us, and therefore forgiving ourselves. This is so much more than anyone, like we said, should have to deal with, and maybe saying, The wife who wishes her husband just would go back to Gaza already is not a monster. And the husband who feels like he can't touch his wife anymore, or like he just, the first thing he wants is sex is not a monster either. And it's quite human and normal and not something that any or many humans have had to go through before. So I'm just kind of taking these last few words that you said about staying alive, which means in a situation like the past few years, often not being the best version of ourselves, like the wellness gurus say, because it's impossible. Or we are in many cases being the best versions of ourselves, even if it doesn't live up to the standard that we imagine we maybe could be doing. And maybe seeking help and therapy and coming through your door is already a testament to couples really wanting to do the best for each other and for their children and for the country.
I was listening to you, and it just came clear to me that I think if we want to zoom out and from like a higher perspective on the entire situation, I think maybe the stories of the hostages are like they take it to the max. We had the opportunity to see what remains when everything has been taken away from people. And I think, you listen to the stories of the hostages and you say, how come they kidnapped only enlightened people? Like, wow. And no, they kidnapped whoever they could. And maybe no one wants to go through what they've been through. But when everything has been taken away from us, we find our spirit. We find something that's beyond everything that we think we really need so bad. Like for 5 minutes, I couldn't find my phone, and I was really, I was panicking. But there's so many things that I tell myself that I really need, and I don't. And maybe we can take this opportunity to remind us what matters, what's the essence. And I think that could be a real deep and significant growth for us as culture, as human beings, as individuals.
A lot of your book revolves around sexuality and around, I think, perhaps a lot of what the couples don't say but feel and are unable to say to each other comes out some way in the bedroom. Frustrations, lack of kind of not being on the same energetic, physical, emotional page. What is it about sexuality that makes the kind of unspoken come up in such a raw, painful way for so many couples? And why is this kind of separation of the miluim, the reserve duty? Sexuality has always been a complicated subject in many couples. But I have the impression that in couples who have been through these separations, there is more kind of hushed because it's not so acceptable, unfortunately, in our society to talk about it. But I do hear a lot of kind of hushed words about how difficult sexuality becomes when you've been apart for so long and so repeatedly. And why is that?
First of all, we spoke about the promotion to feel and to talk about our feelings, and all our feelings are embodied in our body, and the body don't lie. And when it gets to sexuality, it's like we cannot ignore or behave like those feelings are not there. First of all, it tells the truth. Our sexuality is telling the real story of us. And that's amazing because sometimes it's a very good starting point to understand what's really happening within us and between us. And another thing has to do with stress and with trauma, because stress affects us sexually and sometimes in a different way. Some people find themselves when they're being stressful, they are more stimulated. Having sex is a way to relax, to soothe the system. So the more they're stressful, the more they're looking for this relief. For other people, if I'm stressed, don't talk about sex. How can you even think about sex when I'm so nervous and then there's no like peace of mind? I cannot even like make room for sexuality. Unfortunately, those two kinds of people tend to marry each other. And so as the tensions grows and there's more stress, so one of us really feel like we gotta have sex now, and the other one, what you're talking about? It's not happening. And just to know that we react in a different and opposite way to stress is such a big relief, because otherwise people think the other one is just being crazy or disconnected or doesn't understand what I need. And just to understand that it's okay. And if we both relax, then we can get closer together. And if our sexuality becomes another source of tension, then we'll be more stressed. So what I like, on a nutshell, what I suggest for couples is when they like going to the reserve and they're coming back, take everything slowly. Don't jump into conclusion, even if it doesn't work or you don't feel like or you don't function. We tend to be so afraid of anything that goes wrong in this area. Relax. It's not saying anything about you, about your attraction, about your love, about your body. It's not a normal situation, and it takes time. You know, the name of the book is a quote from a song, and the song says, "Give me a minute to get used to you again."
In
And our
Hebrew?
body,
How is it in Hebrew?
תן לי דקה להתרגל אליך שוב.
Sounds so much prettier in Hebrew.
And so the body needs, you've been away for so long. Sometimes people meet each other so much, they keep fantasizing about the moment they're going to be hugging and kissing and squishing each other again. But then when the moment comes and it feels like, the body feels like it's a stranger. I'm not used to you. I'm not used to your touch. I'm not used to your presence. You know, so many times when we just, in our everyday life at home, and so you touch me when you go to the kitchen and I give you a little hug here and we sleep together and under the same blanket. So many moments that our bodies are like, hey, I'm here. Hey, I remember you. Hey, I know you. Our bodies talk. And when they don't for so long, it takes a while. We need these moments. So take it easy. Many times our panic from something is wrong is creating more problems than there are.
Thank you so much, Smadar, for coming in and speaking with me yet again. And
in English.
And in English. Kol hakavod lach. And I wish you the best of success with your book and in your work and in your clinic. And I hope you and the many really wonderful people who are helping this society be held together by threads continue to have the resilience that you need. So, toda rabba.
Toda.